Okay, so welcome. We're going to start with allowing you to introduce yourself and your company and tell us a little bit about your company.
Okay, so hi everyone. Just first, thank you for having me here. My name is Martinique Lewis, and when people ask me what my titles are, I have many. I say a diversity and travel consultant, and what that means is that I teach travel brands and tourism boards how to market to BIPOC communities or communities of color, both traditionally and untraditionally. Additionally, I serve as the president of the Black Travel Alliance, which is an organization which was an organization created, I was going to say connected, but created in 2020 to help Black travel professionals basically level the playing field so that we got paid the same amount as our counterparts, but specifically for Black media to get in front of tourism boards, travel brands, travel magazines, so that we had the same resources and opportunities as our counterparts did. We're very, very successful. I'm very proud of it. We've been able to give out over $100,000 worth of scholarships. We implement programs like the one we have going on right now called Creators Weekend, where we connect, Black travel professionals and content creators directly with a tourism board, and they go there for a weekend and learn how to sharpen their skills. But they also highlight the Black part of that space, since that is something we don't normally see happen. But just in general, the Black Travel Alliance is a great space to be in if you are a Black travel professional listening to this. We welcome you, and we have all the tourism resources you need to be successful in your Black travel career, regardless if you're a content creator, videographer, podcaster, journalist, all of those things. We have something for you. Additionally, I'm the creator and the CEO of the ABC Travel Network, which most people know me for. Underneath that is the ABC Travel Greenbook, and then the app, which just came out in June. June of this year. It was basically my labor of love to the Black travel space and to Black travelers everywhere, so that we can understand how to connect with each other when we're traveling and when we're just at home. People say all the time, "Oh, I can't wait to use your app because I'm going here and here next year." I say, you can use my app this weekend if you want to find a Black-owned brunch spot that is, in your neighborhood. But like I said, it's my labor of love, and it's also keeping the legacy of Victor and Alma Green, who created the Negro Motorist Green Book back in the 1930s. So I
Yes.
love what I do. And last but not least, I am the host of National Geographic's Black Travel Across America, which if you haven't checked it out, you can check it out on National Geographic, Disney Plus, or Hulu. And that keeps some of that legacy of the Green Book alive as well.
Wonderful. Now that was a mouthful of titles. You are doing a lot, lady.
I do. I do a lot in the travel space.
Yes. So what would you say, what created this passion of travel within you?
So it's so weird because my whole life I've worked in the fashion industry, but my whole life I've been traveling. And as a daughter and a granddaughter of immigrants from Panama, I didn't know that being Black and being not from America was a thing, and I didn't realize how special it was. But once I realized that there's so many of us who have ties outside of America, and I realize that we're traveling to these spaces and not connecting with those people in these spaces who look like us, I realize this is a major disconnect. And it's more than Africa, right? It's Central America,
Yes.
South America, it's Japan, it's French Polynesia, it's all of the Caribbean. And so that's one thing that really sparked just me wanting to be in the career that I'm in, but also just the fact that I never saw myself represented in travel ads and promotions. And I remember I was sitting on a plane going somewhere in the Caribbean, and the people on the plane all looked like me, but the in-flight entertainment and the actual magazine, if they showed a Black person, it was we were the help at some resort, or it was a Black
Mm,
man with a white woman. And I'm like, look around this plane.
right.
Ain't nobody on this plane looking like the people you're showing us. And I'm like, that is a problem. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do about it if it's such a problem? And so I started out in the industry as a diversity and travel consultant. I was going to all the travel conferences, sitting on the front row. And when the CEOs would be up there talking, they asked for questions, I would raise my hand and say, what are you doing to make sure that your company is appealing to the Black travel market that spends this much amount money, in the tourism space? You're leaving money on the table. And since all money goes in the bank account the same, it all has a dollar sign in front of it, why
Uh-huh.
is it opportunity that you're choosing to miss? And so I made a name for myself in the industry that way, and then switched over to Black travel content because I realized like we need more of it. And with the rise of the Black travel movement, really since 2009, 2010, understand there's not resources out there because tourism boards don't tell you where to find the Black people in Costa Rica, or they don't tell
Right.
you where to find the Black people in Puerto Rico. They don't tell you where to find the Black people in Japan or South Korea. And so we have to tell ourselves that. And thank God for
Right.
social media, you know, where we can search everything by hashtag, or this day people are, you know, doing everything on TikTok, and YouTube. But if it wasn't for that, how else would have ever been
Right.
connected?
Right.
So it's just been a passion of mine. You know, you go somewhere and people are looking at you like, where are you from? And then when you open your mouth, they're like, oh, you're American, but you look like us. Yeah, because somewhere down the line, you probably my cousin's cousin's cousin,
Uh-huh.
cousin, you know? So it's just one of those things. But that's where my passion comes from, working in the industry.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. I really think what you're doing is definitely needed as someone who travels is just my love language. I love to travel. I have a bucket list. But when I was looking at your ABC travel book, and I saw how you had all these resources and all these connects, and it's like anywhere you go, you can find the best Black-owned restaurant, you know, like you said, the best Black-owned brunch place to go to. Instead of being there and feeling kind of lost, you can go to these places and feel at home, you know. So I think it's wonderful what you're doing, and I love your passion about what you're doing. So
Thank
how
you.
long have you been in the travel business? How many years?
This year makes 8 years, no, 7 years. It's
Okay.
2023. Yeah, this year makes 7 years.
Wow, you've done a
I'm
lot in 7 years.
like, yeah, since
You've done a
2016.
lot in 7 years.
Yeah, yeah.
So what
It's
would you
been
say was your greatest struggle in getting your business started when you first felt the passion that this is definitely a need and I want to do something about it? What was your biggest challenge in getting that going?
definitely being a team of one. One thing that we are starting to implement in the Black Travel Alliance is teaching people how to build their teams. And me really understanding that there could have been people who could have helped me because I'm only one person. So, you know, this is my side hustle. I'm going to 9 to 5, then coming home, eating dinner, and then staying up all night researching, right? Because
Uh-huh.
there's nothing Google can tell me about how to find Black people in Bordeaux, France, right? So it's
Right.
like literally I now have to research everything I can research, and then because social media algorithms, you know, push people in front of your face based off of other people who you follow, I was literally spending hours finding one Black owned business, hitting follow, and then seeing who they suggest, going to make sure they were Black owned, hitting follow, and seeing who they suggest so that I
Wow.
can find these resources and put it all in a book. And after a while, that gets tiring. And so it took me about 2 years to complete the book. But once I did, I just happened to do it at the right time, you know, when the world was, you know, in uproar about how Black people were being treated after, you know, all of humanity. And so the book came out during that time, and I had so many supporters, and then more people saying, how can I add things to the book? So that was my biggest struggle, just, and even now, you know, onboarding people and making sure somebody cares as much as I do so that they do the same amount of work. But in the beginning, it was being a team of one. It was my biggest obstacle.
Yes. Yes, and you had to do a lot of legwork. You basically created this. Like you said, it's nothing online where you can go and say, okay, show me where the Black restaurants are here. So you had to do all that research and pull it together for us.
Yep.
Oh, that's just wonderful, wonderful. So in starting your business, being a business of one, did you have any mentors or did you have any in your family any entrepreneurs to tap into or get information from or advice?
Um, Mentors, no, but people who I can get advice from, yes, because you gotta understand in the Black travel space is very new for all of us. So finding mentorship for somebody who's doing exactly what I'm doing is unheard of. So even now, me building a Black travel app, for one, Black people who have apps is a small number. And then you add travel on top of that.
Right.
Now you're saying, well, who has a Black travel app that is based off of listings like mine? Well, nobody. So then who do I ask? Well, I can ask somebody else who's built an app, so I can ask them for their developer. I can ask somebody over here who has a website who's been able to put all this stuff together and ask them, how do I implement that in the app? But there's literally like no role models yet, right? So whoever
Right.
comes after me, they'll have me as a role model, or they'll have
Exactly.
a Darian
Exactly.
Watson as a role model, or a Lawrence Phillips as a role model. But me, I didn't have that. So it was a lot of research that I had to do on my own. And that's why I tell people all the time, to be in the Black travel space and have like an ecosystem of products, you have to be resilient, because there's nobody for you to ask. You can
Right.
ask people certain things like, well, how do I create an app? But when it comes to what you specifically do, you are writing the blueprint, right?
Right.
So even when I came out with the book, I had some friends who had already self-published on Amazon who could help me navigate that space. I have a marketing background regardless. So because of how my network was within the travel space, because I sit on the board for travel magazines, I could then send the press release out myself to everybody in my network, and either they wrote
Got you.
about it or they shared it with somebody else. So that has always been my bread and butter when I release any type of products, just relying on my own network, which is great because it saves me a lot of money on the PR side, right? Or because of
Right.
all the things I've done in the industry, there's been so many people who have written things about me. So I just go back to them with the press release and they write another write-up. So God has really blessed me in the sense of my network is vast because of all I've been able to accomplish in the industry.
Okay, great. So you are really an innovator in the travel industry. You are a lot of first. Like you
Yeah.
said, you're creating the blueprint for those who come behind you, but you're really the original who's
Yep.
having to put all these pieces together,
Yeah.
and figure it out.
Yep.
That's beautiful. Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
So, in doing that, I know there had to be, or were there days when you felt like, oh, this is just too much? Do I want
Every
to
day I
continue
still
doing it?
feel that way. What you mean are there days? I'm like, girl, 365 of them per year. You know, I don't think I've ever said I want to quit, but some days are rough. But I literally, when I sit and I talk to myself, I always say, you are doing this for those who came before you because they didn't have this. You are doing this for those who are here with you, and you are doing this for all of those that you won't meet. Somebody will have such a better life when you're no longer even living because of what you created when you created it. And I have to remind myself of that, because I always say, this is not for you. This is for those Black-owned businesses in Japan that somebody's going to go
Right.
visit. This is for
Yes.
that Black-owned business in Limon, Costa Rica, that somebody's going to visit because they saw it on your page. This is for next year when every Black person goes to the Olympics in Paris, and all the Black-owned businesses and restaurants that you share will be sold out for days, weeks, months.
Right.
So it's
Yes.
it's it's more than me. And once I realize that, I'm like, okay.
Okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. So there's like a mission behind what you do.
Absolutely. And it's to change
Wow.
the face of tourism forever. That's what I've always said, because tourism shouldn't look one color, and it does. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, we need a piece of this action too. We need a piece of this pie too. So I want to change the way that people approach destinations when they travel to them. I want to change the way people connect with other people who look like them in destinations. And that's what I'm definitely doing.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So, what would you say when you do have those times when you're not thinking about quitting, but feeling a little overwhelmed and have to regroup? How do you fill yourself up spiritually and emotionally? How do you handle that healing?
I have a friend, actually the creator of the Black Travel Summit, who one day I asked her how she was, and she said, "Oh, I'm overwhelmed." And I said, "We can say." She said, "Yeah, they know we can say that." So sometimes when people ask me something, they say, "How are you doing?" I say, "Oh, I'm overwhelmed and I'm gonna take a break." And I do. And I think because my generation came from this hustle culture and
Yes,
us not realizing how much we were burning out because we thought like, nah, you gotta grind, you gotta hustle and all the time. No.
right.
Self-care mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally is the best care. And so sometimes I
Yes,
just take that back and I say, when you're refreshed, you'll be able to get a lot more done. So go ahead and rest. Go ahead and nap. Go ahead and take that walk outside and spin the block. You know what I mean? Like I'm just like,
yes,
if I'm not here, you can't do it. If you don't take
right,
care of yourself, you won't be able to do it. So
right. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm glad you brought up that point about the hustle culture because a lot of us, especially women entrepreneurs, we feel guilty about resting. It's like we feel like we have to earn rest. And by the time we feel like we should rest, to your point, we're burnt out. We've done too much because when our body first told us you're tired, we kept going. No, I can do a little bit more. I got so much to do, as opposed to just stopping, resting, and realizing that when I'm refreshed, I can do it so much better.
So
I'm
much
going to
better.
think so much clearer. I'm going to have so many better ideas that are going to come to mind than
Yep.
trying to plow through and just get it done now.
Yep.
So, and
100%.
and that's still something that I find that's really out there prevalent. This hustle culture, like
Yep.
every minute you have to be doing something, or your business is going to fall apart.
Right.
Well, you're going to fall apart if you're doing something every minute.
Hello. You can't
So
pull
I
from a
love, I
cup.
love what you said there.
Mhm.
So looking at your business, where do you see your business in 5 years from now?
I
Have you
love this
thought
question
about?
because somebody asked me this like a few months ago, and I was like, "Oh God!" I was like, "I'm just trying to remember my name and what day of the week it is." You asked me about 5 years down the line, but it's an excellent question to ask because, for one, as manifestors, which a lot of us are, if we don't start talking about it now, how's your mind gonna know where to direct you to? So,
Right.
um, in the next 5 years in general, I know I want the number one travel app in the app store. And I mean over the Ubers, over the Google flights,
Got
over
you.
over Airbnb. I'm like, nah, I want the number one travel app. And that's what I'm working towards. People say, oh, that's outrageous. That's ridiculous. Is it? Because people said it was going to be outrageous or ridiculous for me to even create this book or this app. So I'm like,
Yes.
for me, there's no limit, right?
Right.
Know that as time goes on, I'll be connected to more people and more people will be downloading the app and Black people will come out the woodworks to support other Black people like they've been supporting me now. And
Yeah.
I'm good with that. But yeah, I want to have the number one app in the app store. I want to definitely have some type of accommodations abroad. It's really my goal, just long-term goal to be like a Sheila Johnson or even like a Kristen Kitchen, where I have a portfolio of Black-owned hotels for people to go to and enjoy. So I
Wonderful.
know what I
Wonderful.
would have want, at least my first property. 2025, it has always been a goal to open up a bowling alley in Seattle, Washington. There's not a lot
Oh,
of Black-owned
wow.
alleys left.
Hmm.
But there's a specific neighborhood called Ballard. And when I visited there with their tourism board, I asked them, well, what do you need here? And they were like, we need stuff to do. And I was like, cool, a bowling alley. And because my dad was the owner, well, he was a manager of one in San Francisco, but it got closed down. And bowling makes people happy. It's definitely something to do.
It
And so I
is.
know my bowling alley. And then I definitely want another show, but this time that's connecting the dots of Black people around the world. So if you go to Belize, you'll find Black people there, but you'll also find those same Belizeans in Chicago. So to talk about that connection, or what's the connection between Cape Verde and Jamaica, or what's the connection between Amsterdam and Ghana, or Amsterdam and Suriname. So I want a show that really explores that. I don't know what it's going to be called yet, but I think it's going to be called Roots, and it's a play on of either ROOTS, like you're rooted, or ROUTES, as in what's the root
Ah,
get to places.
I
So
like
yeah,
that.
these are the things that I want. And all under that ABC Travel Network umbrella. And then I want children's books and like number one travel children's books as well. I already have one out right now. I'm in the process of doing more, but I want those to be able to be in schools so that now people can teach their kids, or school curriculums can teach their kids about how there are Black people everywhere. My niece goes to a Spanish immersion school, and the first book that I came out with is named after her, but she's exploring the different Black communities in Central and South America. And so us being from Panama, people don't realize that there's Afro-Panamanians. They don't realize there's Afro-Costa
Right.
Rica. They don't realize, that there's Black people in Nicaragua or in Venezuela
Right.
or in Brazil. Like, so I want that knowledge to be out there, and I want kids to know. So yeah, I want best-selling children's books too. I want a lot. And people are like, you're so ambitious. I'm like, I am, and it has never steered me wrong yet. So, God has placed the right people in my life to be able to do things, and opportunities come up all the time. So I just remain grateful.
I admire that because you do something that I often tell our entrepreneurs to do, which is dream big. And you're a big dreamer. You know, sometimes we dream, we think it's big, but it's really small because we're trying to stay within our comfort zone. We're trying to be realistic. We're trying to dream at a level where when we tell it to other people, they can believe in it too, as opposed to just letting it go and dreaming really, gigantic to something that we can't see that's possible right now, but we would
Right,
like to create it. And
right.
so I like the way you dream. You dream really big. That's
Thank
beautiful, beautiful. What would you say you love most about being an entrepreneur?
you. Ooh, without a doubt, the freedom to come and go as I please. I worked for New York City tourism up until June the 30th, and I loved my job. And even though I loved my job from this, July to now, July 1st to now, I love just working on my own stuff and not having to focus on anybody else. And it's so funny because um I had been interviewing for a job and I had to just call them and just tell them I've decided to go in a different direction. But thank you. Mom was like, why would you do that? I was like, because I cannot see myself working for anybody else anymore. And I said, for years I've worked for myself, but the simple fact that I can run up to Portland for a day and come back, or before I was in Portland, I was in Mexico for 4 days. And 2 days before that, I was in Costa Rica. And 3 weeks before that, I was in Turkey. And that's just the way that I live my life, and not being confined or bound to, I got to meet every Monday and Wednesday and I got to be in the office twice. I just want to,
Right.
I just love my freedom. But I
Gotcha.
also love being able to call my own shots. If I don't like something that I've been doing, I don't have to run it by nobody. I could just change it. And it makes me feel like I really have a hold on my own personal business versus, me having to explain to somebody about their business why something doesn't work because I'm the expert in it. So for me, it's just the freedom that
Gotcha.
comes with entrepreneurship, and the way that you're able to move around and the way that you are able to shift and pivot if you need to because something isn't working, and you trust yourself and you don't have to
Right.
worry about somebody being out to get you, or somebody not trusting you, or somebody not thinking you're an expert, because you're essentially the master at your craft. So that's what I love the most about it. Definitely the freedom
Okay. The freedom, and it sounds like the flexibility to
and the
pivot when
flexibility.
you need to without having to get a bunch of people to agree with you. So are
Yep.
you still a team of one?
I have people who work for me, but for the most part, yes. I have ambassadors around the world who go to different Black-owned places, and for one, make sure they're Black-owned, but two, if they're not in the app, to put them in the app, and then they create content for me about it. So then
Okay.
that way, when it comes up, I can show my community that it's there, and then we can help amplify that Black-owned business. So there's somebody in Canada, a person in Ghana, a person in South Africa, a person in London, a person who kind of floats around America, and then me. So,
Okay. Wonderful, wonderful. Sounds like the compound effect of all that energy getting
yep.
things done. So, being that you love your freedom and you love your flexibility about being an entrepreneur, what would you say you like least about being an entrepreneur? Is there something you like least?
Yeah, still being that team of one. Some days I'm tired, right? And I'm like, but you got to get this done because it needs to go out. And if you don't get this done, then stuff is gonna pile up. So yeah, it is sometimes being a one of one, or the fact that you're so committed that you will work the long hours and you do lose out on sleep. Um, and then just the lack of resources there are for people who look like me and who are in travel tech.
Mm,
But other than that, yeah, I try not to harp on the other stuff because I'm like, excuse me, I'm like, you sacrifice now, you reap the benefits later. And I know that hard work pays off. I can remember myself 7 years ago, working hard, but in the fashion space, but manifesting really, really hard about what I wanted in life, where I wanted to live, what I wanted to look like. And it's so funny because when I remember my excuse me, when I remember my vision walls, because I'm too extra to only do a board. I used to put a whole wall, so like a whole wall would be covered in stuff. I remember my vision walls. I remember my vision wall from 2016 to 2018.
uh-huh.
And place that I had on there that I wanted to travel to, I traveled to. And the reason that I realized this is because one day I was walking. I'm in Latvia, mind you, which is in the Baltics. People are like, what is Latvia? I'm like, it's a country. They're like, I'm like, exactly. I'm in Latvia and I'm walking. I walk past this house. And in my head, I'm thinking, I've never been here before, but why does this look so familiar? And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, is it deja vu? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? A month later, I'm going through my old vision wall boxes because I just keep them all.
Uh-huh.
The exact house is in there. The exact house.
Wow.
And I didn't even think about it. So then I started
Wow.
pulling out all of them, all of the places I had in there, I had been within those 2 years. And I was like,
Wow.
this is from like 20, actually, this is like 2015, 2016 stuff. And this is 2017, 2018, 2019, where I was realizing like, and at the time I was just cutting stuff out of Condé Nast magazine, right? Which is also interesting. I always tell people when you do your vision board, just understand that things will come, but not in the way that you're coming. Cause I'm cutting stuff out of Condé Nast magazine. And now I sit on the board at Condé Nast. So it's like,
Right, right,
your mind doesn't know exactly what you're saying, but it kind of knows. It's like, okay, you want to go to Latvia and you want to be associated with Condé Nast. Like, you know what I mean?
right,
It's one of those things. So a lot of times I just kind of laugh because I'm like, it might come, but just in a way that you don't think, because you weren't necessarily super specific about this.
right,
So you're like,
right.
only knows what you put out there. But yeah, I had hit all of those places. So yeah, I'm super blessed. And like you said, I dream very big. And I believe that everything that I want can actually happen. So yeah, it's never a what if or if this doesn't. No, it's just like, okay, so when this happens, we move forward this way.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love that. I love that. So if all the places you travel, what would you say are your top three places?
This is a question I get all the time. People are shocked. So my first top place is London, and I just moved from there July 31st. I was there for 3 years, but on and off for probably the past 15 years. My second place is Amsterdam because there's a rich Black community there, and it just was a life-changing experience for me. And my third place is Trinidad because I love Trinidad Carnival, and I've been going for the past 10 years. So for me, I always say Trinidad Carnival is like my New Year's. I'm like for some people, their New Year's is New Year's.
Right.
Their New Year's is their birthday, but for me, it's always Trinidad Carnival because I ain't checking no email. I'm not looking at my phone. Setting, I'm in my costume. I'm having a good time. I'm eating well. I'm
Ah,
enjoying life with my favorite music in the world. And I'm just like, yes, this is it.
and what time
So
of the year is that?
every February. And so I'm
Okay,
born in February also. So it's either falls on my birthday or it's before my birthday. So it's like an early birthday gift to myself. But yeah, this
got
year
you.
it's on Valentine's Day. So
Nice, nice. So what do
mhm.
you like most about London?
What do I like?
Uh-huh.
So I went there for school. And it was the first place that I really realized like, oh, Black people are also in Europe, right? Because obviously I know Black people are in Central America because we're from Panama, but it wasn't the London that they show you, right? Just like when you go to
Ah,
Paris they show you. So it wasn't Buckingham Palace, it wasn't
right,
Big Ben, it wasn't the changing of the guards, it wasn't the Victoria and Albert Museum. It was like East London, where it's nothing but Black people. It was Brixton, where it's nothing but Black people. It's a African Heritage Museum, and
wow,
all these Jamaican restaurants and all these African restaurants, and I just couldn't
wow,
believe it. And so I instantly fell in love because now it's Black people who speak English like me, but that don't sound like me. And they're from all over the world. And I wasn't meeting those same type of people in America because we're not from Ghana and drove loads like they are there. We're not from St. Vincent and St. Lucia like they are
right,
there. So I'm getting exposed to a whole new level of Blackness that I didn't know exists because that's not what they showed me on TV. And
right,
so for me, it was connecting with the Black people in London and understanding that they loved our music and we loved their music. And you know what I mean? It just was so refreshing for me. But also, London is such an international city, just like San Francisco or New York or LA is. And I just love the diversity of it. You see a
ah,
friend group walking down the street and nobody is the same ethnicity. There's a Black kid, a white kid, a kid from Pakistan, a kid from Grenada, a kid from Suriname. Like everybody is from somewhere and they all love each other. So there was never like this hatred because you're something
right,
different like we would experience in the US. So it just really
ah,
definitely changed my mind. And then because at the time I was in the fashion industry, so it's a mecca for fashion design. And so
Mm.
London was the first place where I really felt super creative and super
Uh-huh.
connected to my craft at the time, which was fashion. But also the fact how quick you can get to other places in the world. You know, in America, if I want to go from Ohio to California and I'm taking a car, it's 3 days. If I want to go from London to Paris in a car, it's 3 hours. So, you know, it's one of those
Ah,
where it's like, you know, the accessibility to get from one place to the next is so good there.
wonderful, wonderful. Now you just dropped a lot of things that piqued my interest. One was that we really don't see the real view of what's in these countries as it connects to our representation. You know, like you
Mhm.
said, we see the Buckingham Palace, we see the changing of the guards, but we don't see the Black community. So we have no idea. So I see why, one of your dreams is to have more children books so that children can become aware of this and we raise generations that are more aware of what's out there as opposed to what we see on television.
Exactly.
Um, I really like that. That's really great. Also, the way you want to connect um, Black travelers and all travelers with Black businesses that are out there that don't get featured in the travel magazines. You know, you
Exactly.
don't know about them unless you do the work you did. You dig and
Exactly.
you find them and then you share them with other people.
Exactly.
So, if all the things you do and they kind of fit together really nicely, then of all the things you do, what would you say you want your legacy to be that you leave from all these different facets of travel that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I would definitely say the legacy I want to leave is that I was a connector who made sure that the diaspora was preserved, even though they tried to stop our cross connection, right?
Uh-huh.
They didn't want Black people to know that there's Black people here, there, and everywhere because
Right.
they specifically don't do that. They don't want to tell the Black history in certain spaces. So I want to be known as a person who was going to teach that and who was going to connect the dots and who was able to do that.
Right.
Um, yeah, that's definitely the legacy that I'm leaving and that I want to continue to leave. Um, so
Beautiful. Now, what books do you have out? Tell me about your books and how many there are, the titles, so that our listeners can go and look them up and get some
yeah.
of that great information you've done so much hard work to put together for us.
Thank you. So the actual book with the resources is the ABC Travel Greenbook. That came out in 2020. So there are some updates that need to happen, but that's why I tell people to go ahead and purchase the app because the
Okay.
app has so many more listings. And also when you're a self-publisher on Amazon, if if you go over a certain amount of pages and they really start taking all of the money from you that you make. So I had to keep it also in the parameters of that, but also because I know you can go on Google and figure out where the Black owned spaces are in the 50 states. That book highlights a lot of outside of America because
Gotcha.
that's the information that you don't have. However, it does tell you all the Black hotels everywhere in the world. It tells you all the Black owned banks. It tells you
Oh,
HBCU. It
wonderful.
tells you, the Black yachting companies. It tells you how to find the Black motorcycle gangs, but then it
Ooh.
goes heavily into Europe. But the app goes all across 6 continents because nobody lives in Antarctica, but all across 7 continents.
Okay.
Continents, and you can find Black people some everywhere. So I do encourage people to purchase the app
And
versus
that's
the
the
book.
ABC Travel app,
ABC Travel Green Book,
Travel
and
Green
ABC
Book.
stands for All Black Content. So sometimes I think
Ah,
that helps people remember the ABC part, but it's ABC Travel Green Book.
wonderful.
Hmm.
Wonderful. The book and the app.
Yep.
And then you said you wrote a children's book.
Yes, sorry. So the children's book is called Cheyenne in the ABC Travel Green Book. And like I said, it's
Okay.
based off of my niece. At the time, she was 6, now she's 9. But she travels her backpack with her unicorn horns on and follows the Green Book to certain Black destinations. So she goes and visits the Esmeraldas, who are the Black people in Ecuador. She goes to Bocas del Toro, where we're from, and visits the Black people in Panama. She goes to Peru and visits the Black people there. So, you know, it's her understanding, okay, what day do they celebrate this? So if you go to the Costa Rica page, it tells you that August 31st is called something called Dia del Negro, and it's Day of the Black people, and that they celebrate Black History Month the whole month of August. It shows you
Oh,
what their dances
wow.
are, what their native foods are, you know, what they're known for. So things that, you know, things that will stick out when they are on their voyages or even when they're at home. The other day we went to a Peruvian restaurant, and the Afro-Peruvian dish that those enslaved people used to make is something called taku taku, and it's basically rice and peas, day-old rice and peas, but it's fried and with onions, and then you add the meat, and it's so good. But we went there, she was like, taku taku, Peru, and I'm like, exactly. I'm like, it works, right? It works. So yeah,
Yeah.
I hope that kids everywhere have that type of experience. And so by the time they get into college and they meet another Black person who's from a foreign land, they're like, yeah, and I know a little something about your country and about your
Right.
community and how you guys celebrate.
Right. Wonderful. Wonderful. So, in funding your business and your different activities, have you utilized grants or business loans or personal funds?
All personal funds and grants. I don't want to owe nobody, so I don't take out no loans. But also,
Gotcha.
a lot of the proceeds from the book help build the app. So the book
Okay.
sold over 10,000 copies very, very early. And so that was really the start of it. Then I've applied for a few grants and have gotten some. The Johnny Walker grant I've been able to get, and I'm part of all of those communities. The New Voices grant I've been able to get. So yeah, I'm applying for grants all the time. And I love them because it helps you really, really understand where your company is at, where you're going, and what specifically you need money for. And it helps people also understand the same thing. I don't get deterred when I don't get one. I just keep applying for it. The
Going.
next year comes around and find the next one to continue to apply for. So yeah, I'm grateful that there are even grant opportunities like there are out there. And I understand how competitive it is, especially for Black women, because we out here kicking ass right now. We out here
Yes.
creating some of everything. So I'm like, well, if I
Yes.
didn't, I'm proud of my sis who did, you know, because there is enough to go around. There is enough for everybody. And so, yeah, I just remain grateful.
Yes. Black woman-owned businesses are the fastest growing area of businesses in the United States.
Yep.
So that's true. You're right. If someone else gets the grants, they deserved it. Wonderful, wonderful. So when you talk about being a Black woman entrepreneur, what would you say or what can you share that you do to take care of yourself in the arena of self-care when you need it?
So for me, it's exercising. If I can run or if I can walk like hills, because I live in a very hilly neighborhood, that is like my release. So I'm a basketball player, and basketball used to be my release. You know, it's the endorphins, it's all of that sweating and
Right,
everything else. So for me, it's still working out because I'm able to just focus on my body. And that's a lot of times what I do for self-care. And then recently I said, when I travel and I go somewhere, I'm going to the spa. And I used to do that, but instead my itinerary used to be so packed. But now I'm like, no, I'm going to the spa. I'm going to get a massage. I'm going to sit in the sauna, whatever, just so
right,
I can relax, you know, because your body also needs that refresh as well.
right, right. Wonderful, wonderful. So now we're going to go into a couple of fun questions that are
Okay.
just personal to let our audience know a little bit more about you. The first one we're going to tackle is food. What would you say is your favorite cuisine?
Ooh,
That a
favorite
tough one?
It kind of is, but honestly, it's not. It's Mexican food. I know people are gonna be like, "What?" But I grew up in California, so I'm tacos all day, right? Like tacos all day, tacos all night. If it's a corn tortilla, it's one of the most healthiest things you can eat, as long as you don't load it up, because you just got your protein, your vegetables, and you're good, right? So
Ah,
I love Mexican food. And then I would say my second one is Nigerian. I really love Nigerian food.
ah.
Um, yeah, so many different kinds, and I just like, I really adore
All
Nigerian.
right. So Mexican and Nigerian. Wonderful. So looking at let's look at your childhood for a while. What would you say was your favorite childhood game?
Ooh, probably basketball. That's all I ever played. And I did my whole up until I was an adult. So yeah, I was
Got
definitely
you.
basketball.
Okay, b-ball.
Yep.
And what is your favorite hobby?
Now that's a good one. I would say at this age in life, cooking. Again, for me, it's a form of self-care because I have so much stuff going on every day. It's the one time I get to just relax and focus on something else that makes other people happy. Because I moved back in with my parents this past month. They're going through some health challenge. Well, my dad's going through some health challenges. So in order for me to show up for my mom, I was like, well, I'll move back home and help. And their house is big enough to where I can never have to see them in one wing of the house anyways. But I cook for them dinner whenever I'm here, or I'll meal prep so that when I'm not here, they have food to eat. But I just
Mm-hmm.
love them being like, oh, this is so good. Or I leave and I come
Yes.
back, girl, we tore that up. It was so good. And for me, that just makes me happy. So, I love pretty food and I love cooking food.
Got
I
you.
want food to be like, I want it to taste good, and then I want it to look beautiful also. So yeah, I
Mm.
would say that right now is my favorite hobby, and running, my favorite hobby.
Okay. Okay. And it sounds like you cook pretty healthily. You're pretty into eating healthily. So
I am. And so even with that, people think that you cook healthy and it doesn't taste good. I'm like, nah, you just don't know what things to use. But like everything we need comes from the earth. Every
mhm.
single thing we need. You know what I mean? All the spices that you can use, all the fruit
Right.
that you can use, like it just makes life so easy. I use honey in so much stuff, especially
Ah,
dinner. And I love hot honey too. And people are like,
uh-huh.
what you did? And I'm like, I sure did. And they're like, dang, that's good. I'm like, it is. And it's coming from bees. You know what I mean? I'm like, you can't go wrong
Right.
with honey. So yeah, I love food, and I love to.
Wonderful, wonderful. Sounds like you should do a cookbook too.
It would be a good idea,
It
huh?
would be, yeah.
From around the world.
So is there any cause or charity that has your heart or that you're really connected to?
Not really, but I do Meals on Wheels. I think that we as a people need to take care of our elders. They took care of us at one point, so now we can return the favor. And a lot of them don't have resources, and a lot of people don't realize that. Like, it takes nothing to go and walk with an old person for 10 minutes a day. It takes nothing to call them to see how they're doing. It takes nothing to go and give them some food, and a lot of people have lost their grandparents or even sometimes their parents, and it's like, oh, this is one way to be connected because somebody gonna remind you of somebody. But Mills and Wills is definitely an important program for me. There are tons of programs out there that I support that are for youth who are traveling, like Be Girl World, Toka Social, or I Fly Youth. Those are all Black companies that help Black students be able to get their passports and go somewhere. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow. Nice, nice.
there's a
Now, are
few.
those type of resources in your ABC Travel Greenbook?
No, those are
Okay,
not. Mm-mm.
okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay. Um, Something else I want to ask you. It just slipped my mind. I wanted to come back. Come back. Oh, you have a summit coming up, correct?
Yes. The
Tell us
Black
about your
Travel
summit.
Summit. The Black Travel Summit is in its second year and it's happening in Miami, Florida. The Black Travel Summit was created by that lady who I was speaking about before, Anita Francis, and she's bringing together Black travel professionals from all over to be able to give us resources and make sure that we're well equipped to be the best that we can be in this space. And I was letting you know I will be the keynote speaker this year, and it is from October 20th through 22nd. If people can make it, it is an awesome opportunity to connect with like-minded individuals who look like you in the travel space. The programming is amazing, from the actual sessions to the recreational or to the meetups and the happy hours and the gala. It's so wonderful and it feels good to be there. So yeah, the Black Travel Summit, you can find it at blacktravelsummit.com, October 20th through the 22nd, and there are still tickets available.
And that's in Miami, Florida?
Miami, Florida, Hyatt
Wonderful,
Central Circle.
wonderful, wonderful. Great information for our listeners to connect with, to check out the books, the app, the summit. Great information they can't get anywhere else. We are so appreciative of your time, of
Love
the
you.
information you shared, your knowledge about your entrepreneur experience. and everything that you're doing to keep us connected, and to keep us aware of what's really out there. We greatly appreciate that. Thank you again for being a part of our podcast and sharing this information. I'm sure our audience, they learned so much today, and I will urge them to get that app. I'm going to get it as soon as we're done. So much great information. And to your point, it's not just about if you travel the world, but it's about where you live. You can
Right.
find resources for where you live, places to visit. My birthday was last month, and I made it a point to get all my birthday presents from Black-owned businesses.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, so that, and it
Fantastic.
was so like these earrings on one. I got this from Cloth and Cord.
I
They
love
make
that.
these earrings. So yes, so that's a good idea. I like to throw out there for our listeners to think about that when you're getting gifts for anyone, yourself or anyone else. Look up and find a Black business that produces what you're trying to purchase, and buy it from a Black-owned business. So again,
Absolutely.
thank you so much for being with us today. We like to say to you to be well. We wish you health. We wish you high spirituality. We wish all your dreams come true and that you're able to receive them.
Thank you. Thank you so
You're
much for
welcome.
having me.
You're welcome.